Days of thunderstorms have flooded the Himalayas. Relying on my awakened space ability, I got an amphibious RV and started my escape journey. When the first thunder struck, I was squatting in the yard eating instant noodles, my chopsticks barely steady. The sky outside darkened as fast as my mom's face when she's angry. I looked up for a second and continued eating. The weather in seaside villages is always like this, sunny one second, pouring rain the next. When the second thunder struck, the soup in my bowl shook. The third thunder. The whole house started to tremble. I put down my chopsticks and walked out the door. The rain wasn't just falling, it was pouring down like a waterfall. From the sky to the ground, it formed a massive grayish-white curtain. It smashed against the seaweed-thatched roof, the noise blending together until I couldn't hear anything else. A yellow bolt of lightning struck down. I saw the peach tree in the yard snapped in half, right in front of my eyes. I blankly took out my phone and checked the weather forecast, which still read sunny, suitable for travel. The fourth thunder. The phone signal completely died. Tsunami, a tsunami is coming, run, screams from the distant coastline echoed over. I glanced back at my house, one bed, one table, a box of instant noodles, and a 5-year-old broken computer. There was nothing worth taking. I quickly pushed the door open. The water was already above my ankles. I ran up the hill, took a few steps, and then stopped. The RV. My beat-up RV was still parked in the open space down the slope. I bought it 3 years ago from an old retired outdoorsman. It was a 9th-hand junker. Whenever the engine started, it would startle all the dogs in the village. I had saved up 2 years of salary, planning to drive it along the Sichuan-Tibet route this year, but never got around to it. Now the water had already flooded the tires. Screw it, I turned around and rushed down the slope. When the water reached my calves, I climbed into the driver's cabin. Turned the key. Ignition. The engine coughed 3 times and miraculously started. I shifted gears and stepped on the gas. The RV arched forward a bit but didn't move. The mud and sand in the water had buried the tires halfway. I stepped on it again. The engine roared like a dying bull. It moved. The RV inched its way up little by little. Water from the drainage ditch poured into the cabin, but I didn't care about anything else. I just kept my foot on the gas and charged upwards. When I reached the top of the hill, I looked into the rearview mirror. The small yard in the distance was gone. Several large trees tangled with white power lines were swirling in the floodwaters. I slammed on the brakes and slumped over the steering wheel, panting heavily. Only after catching my breath did I realize my hands were shaking. That night, I parked the RV at an observation deck on the mountaintop and unconsciously fell asleep. The next morning, the rain had stopped. I looked out the window. Dark, oppressive clouds still lingered overhead, making me anxious. My phone still had no signal. Sigh, I let out a breath. I got off to check the RV. It was okay. No water in the engine, the water tank was full, and the fuel tank was half full. Inside the cabin, pots and pans were scattered everywhere, the blanket was wet, and the potted pothos plant in the corner had fallen over. While I was cleaning up, I noticed something strange. That potted pothos looked wilted yesterday, but today, all its leaves were standing straight up. When I uprooted the plant, I casually poked my finger into the soil. I hit something hard. Brushing away the dirt, I found a palm-sized stone buried inside. It was grayish and irregularly shaped. It looked like the kind of stone you'd pick up casually on the side of the road. But I had never put any stones in this flower pot. I dug the stone out and saw words carved onto it. Very small, crooked letters, like they were scratched in with a nail. I leaned in to read it word by word. A. Wakening space. Activation method. Drop blood to open, it was a key. Out of curiosity, I dripped some blood onto it. The next second, I suddenly found myself standing in a completely different place. It was entirely white around me. I couldn't see anything. I took 2 steps forward, and the white mist parted, revealing a patch of land. It was a rectangular piece of black soil, about 20 square meters. Soft. It gave off a rich, earthy scent. At the end of the field was a thin stream of water. I didn't know where it came from or where it flowed to. The water was so clear I could see the pebbles at the bottom. I crouched down and grabbed a handful of dirt. The soil was moist, rubbing it between my fingers. It clumped together perfectly. I farmed before. When I was a kid at my grandma's house, I'd go out to the fields every summer vacation. This soil was even more fertile than the dirt in Grandma's vegetable garden. It was truly magical. I dusted off my hands, stood up, and caught a glimpse of an RV parked by the edge of the field. It looked exactly like the one I had driven up the mountain. I walked into its cabin. The messy interior was gone. Instead, there were neatly arranged shelves. Stacked on the shelves were seeds, rice, wheat, corn, potatoes, cabbage, and several bags I couldn't even recognize. Pushing open the small door at the end of the shelves, I found a driver's cabin, but next to the dashboard in this vehicle, there was an extra button. The button had a propeller engraved on it. Why would an RV have a propeller? Hesitantly, I pressed it. But nothing else happened. I pressed it again. Still no reaction. Forget it. I waved my hand and backed out of the driver's cabin. I went back to the edge of the black soil and scattered a little bit of every seed. Then, holding the stone, I focused my mind. When I opened my eyes again, I was back in the real world. I steadied my nerves, trying to calm my racing heart. Suddenly, a clamor of voices came from outside the vehicle. It turned out a group of villagers had gathered halfway up the mountain at some point. Because the observation deck I parked on was quite secluded, they hadn't noticed me. This rain flooded the entire village. We can't just wait here to die. My grandson hasn't eaten anything for 8 hours. I say we kill this big black dog, roast it, and eat it so we can warm our bodies. An old man shouted. Some in the crowd stayed silent, while others agreed. The owner of that black dog was a little girl. Right now, she looked like a startled fawn, staring defensively at the crowd. She had a fierce look in her eyes, as if she would fight to the death with anyone who dared touch her dog. I kept quiet. Before figuring out the situation, I couldn't act rashly. The sky gradually darkened, and it started to drizzle again. Everyone scattered to find shelter from the wind and rain to wait for rescue. I picked up a small pebble and tossed it, hitting the girl's back. Who? The girl turned around warily. Come here. I waved at her. The girl and her dog cautiously walked towards me. Who are you? I'm just a badass. You don't need to know who I am. Take this. I reached out and handed her a pothos leaf. Drip a drop of your blood onto the leaf. It will turn into a leaf boat. There will be a massive storm in the second half of the night. Run while you can. The girl doubtfully took the green leaf. I didn't care if she actually believed me or not. I turned around and left. Ding, mission completed. This vehicle has been upgraded with a submarine function. As soon as I entered the RV door, the system notification rang from the control panel. Great! An hour ago, the control panel had suddenly flashed a red warning. I had looked at it in confusion. It indicated that at 2:00 a.m. tonight, this area would be completely submerged by heavy rain. And in order to unlock the submarine function for the RV, I had to complete a random mission. The mission card I drew read, help a non-human species escape. I avoided the crowd, drove the RV slowly down the other side of the mountain, and reached the floodwaters halfway down. I cautiously pressed the propeller button. The vehicle rocked twice, and a surge of airflow from the rear pushed me back into my seat. The ordinary RV successfully entered the water, a seal deployed inside the cabin. The vehicle stood steady in the turbulent current. I tentatively stepped on the gas pedal. The RV shot forward like a wild horse slipping its reins. That damn acceleration. I couldn't hold back the smirk forming on my lips. Haha. This was too awesome. I set the navigation to the Himalayas on the control panel. My goal was clear. I needed to reunite with my family. My family lived in a cave at the top of the Himalayas. They were the last remaining cave dwellers in modern society. I turned on the autopilot. Then I went to the back seat, brewed a cup of coffee, and opened a pack of soda crackers to snack on. I didn't have much of an appetite. I just felt mentally exhausted. Holding my coffee, I had just taken a sip when the control panel suddenly flashed a red light. Warning, abnormal energy fluctuations detected in the waters ahead. Bypass recommended. What's going on? I put down my coffee and leaned closer to the window. The sea surface amidst the fog looked calm and normal. Suddenly, a triangular flag came drifting from afar, getting closer and closer. Why would someone plant a flag on the sea? Oh no, it's a shark. I quickly turned off cruise control and slammed the gas pedal to the floor. The shark missed its strike from the side, then turned around and accelerated towards me. I've seen real sharks before, but I never expected this fish to be bigger than the RV and swimming so fast. Prompt, attack detected. Enable defense mode. What defense mode? Ah, screw it. Enable. The RV's body quickly popped out barbs, and I could faintly see electricity coursing through them. The shark felt the pain, and its speed finally dropped. Finally shook it off. I let out a deep breath. Looks like that defense upgrade from the other day was incredibly practical. I drove manually for a while. Only after confirming there was no danger nearby did I safely turn the autopilot back on. It was still over 2,000 kilometers to the destination. My fuel definitely wouldn't be enough. That narrow escape just now seemed to have drained all my physical strength. My head felt heavy and dizzy. After taking a few bites of bread, I gripped the stone and lay down on the bed in the back to rest. I planned to go inside the space to take a look. As soon as I entered the awakening space, I was dumbfounded. The seeds I sowed last time had already borne fruit. Potatoes, tomatoes, rice. Wheat. They were hanging heavily on the stalks. A massive harvest. I hurriedly grabbed some bags to start picking. This really is a magical piece of land, I muttered to myself as I harvested. With all these supplies, I wouldn't have to worry about food and drinks at all, but what about fuel? I walked over to the RV parked by the road inside the space. My eyes landed on the fuel tank area. The fuel for the RV outside would only last a few hundred more kilometers before stalling, but this vehicle in the space, I had never tested if it could be started. I gritted my teeth, pulled open the door, and got in. The key was already in the ignition. I gave it a gentle twist. Vroom! The engine roared, echoing throughout the space. The dashboard lit up all at once, and the fuel gauge needle rested steadily at the full mark. Even the fuel type perfectly matched the RV in the outside world. I happily patted the steering wheel, so this space wasn't just for growing food. Even the vehicle here could be used as an endless fuel depot. After taking a nap, it was still raining outside. I rubbed my eyes. I turned on the TV in the RV and watched a variety show. I had cached it previously, not expecting it to be so useful now. With the joyful background noise of the celebrities, I started tidying up the RV. First, I needed to refuel. I found a flexible hose. I opened the window, stuck it into the fuel filler, secured it, and then slowly poured gasoline from inside the vehicle. The navigation announced there were only 200 kilometers left. I wondered how my family was doing. After refueling, I packed up the trash. I turned on the induction cooker and fried myself to eggs. Then I boiled some water and took out the sesame paste rice noodles I had hoarded to soak. Afterward, I placed the eggs with crispy fried edges into the rice noodles so they could soak up the rich broth. Ah, it would be perfect if I had a crescent bun right now. I slurped up a mouthful of the piping hot noodles. After being highly tense for so long, eating something warm right now made my stomach feel incredibly comforted. After eating, I started getting seasick. I leaned against the window, gloomily watching the sea level outside. Rocking back and forth, I was about to fall asleep when suddenly, I saw a massive wave churn up not far away. Looking closer. Oh crap, the shark had come back. What sin did I commit for it to follow me all this way? Wait, no. That shark wasn't this big. The giant wave in the distance clearly hinted at a colossal creature. Ancient dinosaur fish detected. Enable acceleration mode. Enable. Target speed is too fast. Unable to escape attack range. What do I do? A sharp fishing hook flew right past the RV and stabbed straight into the pupil of the dinosaur fish. It was my family. I saw you being attacked by this monster from 100 kilometers away and rushed over to help. The one speaking was my dad, the cave chief himself. I slammed the RV door open, and the rain instantly soaked my sleeves. My dad was standing on a specially made wooden raft, holding a fishing rod as thick as a bull. The fishing line at the end of the rod was pulled taut. He was dragging that injured ancient dinosaur fish with all his might. Open the door wider, we're coming aboard. My mom's voice came from the water. So the reason the raft was moving so fast was because Mom was pushing it from behind. She was a famous strong woman throughout the Himalayas. Here. My dad maneuvered the hook and forcefully plucked the dinosaur fish's other eye out. In an instant, the behemoth lost its vision and thrashed madly in the sea. Once they were all inside, I immediately closed the door and sped away from the danger zone. We can't go back to our cave, Mom said, wiping her body down while stuffing crackers into her mouth. She's a strong woman. High energy consumption is normal for her. I didn't expect the Himalayas to be flooded too. It seems the storm is truly a force to be reckoned with. Is the apocalypse really coming? I didn't hold back my worries. Then where do we go next? Let's go to the highest peak, Mount Everest, to find your grandpa and grandma. It should be safe there, okay? I set the navigation for Mount Everest and turned on the autopilot. Dad, Mom, are you hungry? I'll cook for you. I took out 50 tomatoes from my awakening space. I cooked 10 kilos of rice and made tomato sauce rice bowls. This was just their normal portion for one meal. So delicious. It's been so long since we've had vegetables this fresh. Dad wiped his mouth, still craving more. Eat up, I have plenty more here. Before I could even finish my sentence, Mom had already crashed out and fallen asleep. She could eat hard and sleep hard. That was also the secret behind her explosive strength. I leaned against the seat, feeling drowsy too. It was already dark. I wanted to visit my space while they were asleep. The temperature inside the space was perfect. I quickly harvested the ripe vegetables and fruits and moved them to the RV. Then I urgently planted a new batch. Now that I had 2 heavy eaters to feed, I had to make sure the food reserves were sufficient. While I was scattering the seeds, I suddenly felt that the land area had grown a size bigger than before. What's going on? Could this be a reward for defeating the dinosaur fish? I planted wheat all over the expanded area. My mom eats too much 10 kilos of rice per meal. By the time I finished working in the space, it was already midnight. I let them have the bed. I laid a blanket on the chairs and slept on my side. The RV rocked on the sea like a giant cradle. The endless dark night was mingled with the howling of the sea wind. I wondered how things were at Mount Everest. I just hoped we could find a place to settle down. While thinking about it, I unknowingly drifted off to sleep. The night was as dark as ink. The sea breeze, carrying freezing rain, brutally slapped against the windows. The RV swayed violently on the sea, like a leaf that could be torn apart at any moment. I curled up on the seats, barely half asleep, when a piercing sound of tearing metal suddenly exploded. The RV tilted severely, and I was thrown violently toward the driver's console. My knee hit hard, sending a jolt of sharp pain. I was instantly wide awake. Bang! A terrifying impact came from the chassis. It felt like massive creatures were frantically ramming us from underwater. The navigation screen immediately glitched out. Sparks hissed from the electronics, and the autopilot died. My parents in the back woke up with a start. Dad grabbed his thick fishing rod, his eyes sharpening in focus. The things underwater are worse than the dinosaur fish. I forced myself to crawl back into the driver's seat. Outside the window, black mist covered everything. Visibility was less than 2 meters. I could only hear the dense, terrifying sound of fins slicing through the water, making my scalp tingle. Countless mutant fish, half the size of a human with razor-sharp teeth, leaped from the water. They smashed against the RV's outer shell, leaving dents all over the metal body. A school of sharks. They were drawn by the bloody scent of the dinosaur fish. Dad let out a low roar, his fishing rod instantly pulling taut. One monster fish shattered the window. Foul-smelling seawater poured in as razor-sharp teeth lunged straight at me. I grabbed an iron pot from the induction cooker and smashed it over. The pot was bitten out of shape on the spot. Mom roared and charged over. Her arms bulged as she grabbed a monster by the tail and brutally whipped it out, smashing down a bunch of its kind. But the fish kept multiplying. The RV was completely surrounded. Even the doors were battered out of shape. I gripped the steering wheel tightly, but the RV simply couldn't break through the encirclement. Seawater poured in through the broken windows, and water quickly pooled on the cabin floor. Drive towards the shallows of Mount Everest. There are many reefs there. They won't be able to get in. Dad planted his feet against the seats, gripping the fishing rod to battle the mutant fish. The fishing line dug into his palms, making them bleed profusely. Mom blocked the broken window. Every punch she threw exploded a monster fish's head, though her arms were scratched and bloody by their teeth. Just as a giant-toothed shark leaped from the water, ready to swallow the RV whole. Two blindingly bright beams of light shot down from the peak of Everest, perfectly illuminating the beast. It's a searchlight, Grandpa, Grandma. I felt a surge of wild joy. On the shore of the peak, my grandpa, weighing an impressive 300 kilos, was manning two high-power diesel generators. Grandma was operating a modified high-pressure water gun and a net launcher. Powerful streams of water relentlessly smashed into the monster fish. Massive fishing nets rained down from above, tightly entangling the fiercest giant-toothed sharks. Kids, drive towards the shore. We've got you covered. Grandpa's roar pierced through the storm, while Grandma busily added firewood to the blazing bonfire. Under the fierce glow of the fire, the shark school didn't dare advance recklessly. I sharply turned the steering wheel, using the escape path Grandpa and Grandma cleared. The RV crashed onto the reef beach at the foot of Everest. The mutant fish were forced back by the water jets and nets, retreating into the deep sea with wailing sounds. The vehicle door was jammed from the impact. Dad wedged his fishing rod into the door gap as a lever, and Mom pulled with all her explosive strength, yanking the door open with a bang. We stumbled and crawled onto the reef beach. Grandpa and Grandma immediately rushed over. Grandma hugged me tightly, tears mixing with the rain on her face. Finally, you're here. We guarded this spot every day, terrified something had happened to you. Grandpa efficiently brought out the first aid kit and helped treat my parents' wounds. The rain gradually lightened, and the sky began to turn a soft pale white. The silhouette of Mount Everest became clear. On a flat area at the summit, Grandpa and Grandma had already built a simple wooden cabin and cultivated a small vegetable patch. It was exactly the home we had been yearning for day and night. Together, we dragged the RV next to the wooden cabin and simply patched up the broken doors and windows. Dawn fully broke. Hunger swept over us. Mom wiped the water from her face and grinned broadly. After fighting a war, we need a massive meal. Mom's starving. I immediately got to work. I moved 25 kilos of rice out from the space, set up the RV's induction cookers to boil rice, and picked fresh tomatoes and cabbage. I made a huge pot of stir-fried cabbage with tomatoes and fried 20 eggs. The aroma of rice filled the air, blending with the fresh scent of cabbage, the sweet and sour richness of tomato sauce, and the crispy smell of fried eggs. Our whole family gathered around the table, devouring the food. The 25 kilos of rice quickly hit the bottom of the pot. My granddaughter's cooking is simply the best, better than anything else in the world. Grandma wiped her mouth, smiling so widely that all the wrinkles on her face smoothed out. After eating, Mom crashed into bed to recover her strength. Dad, Grandpa, and I started cleaning up the camp. First, we cleared out the water pooled inside the RV, fixed the damaged doors and windows, and brought out the seeds. and farming tools from the space. Grandpa and Grandma had long figured out farming methods suitable for the Everest summit. We expanded the fields together. Dad and Grandpa tilled the soil, and I did the sowing. We buried rice and vegetable seeds one by one into the earth. Grandma boiled hot water, carrying bucket after bucket to irrigate them. We worked until evening. Mom woke up, her strength fully restored. She voluntarily took over the watering tasks. She could lift a ton of water with a single hand. Her efficiency was higher than the three of us combined. I started making dinner again. I stewed a pot of vegetable porridge, steamed 50 steamed buns, and stir-fried a massive basin of greens. The family sat around the campfire eating dinner in the twilight. In our ears, there was only the sea breeze and the laughter of family. It felt so stable and grounded. In the days that followed, we completely settled down. Every day before dawn, I would go to the fields to check on the crops. The rice gradually began to sprout ears. Mom used her massive strength for the heavy lifting, while Grandma delicately tended to the vegetable seedlings. They cooperated flawlessly. The ripe produce was picked, sorted, and stored in the RV and the cabin storage room. Dad and Grandpa were in charge of fortifying the camp. They built high walls out of reef stones and installed searchlights and net defense systems to prevent monster fish from harassing us again. Dad also modified his thick fishing rod and attached new hooks. Using his years of experience, Grandpa took Dad to the shallows to catch fresh sea fish, adding meat to our dining table every single day. My space also completely stabilized. The land had expanded a whole size larger than before. I went in every day to sow and harvest. Our food reserves piled up like a small mountain, enough to feed our family for years. Our daily life became simple and fulfilling. Farming and harvesting in the morning, cooking steaming hot meals at noon, tomato sauce rice bowls, sesame paste rice noodles, and steamed sea fish, alternating the menu every day. At dusk, the family sat by the campfire chatting, watching the sunset from Mount Everest, feeling peaceful and warm. The floodwaters still submerged the world below the mountain, but the summit of Everest, because our family was reunited, had become our true utopia. As night fell, the cabin and the RV were brightly lit. Delicious fish soup simmered in the pot, and the aroma of rice wafted through the air. Mom chewed on a steamed bun while gossiping with Grandma. Dad and Grandpa were organizing their fishing gear, watching this lively, reunited scene before me. My heart was filled with a sense of security. No matter how terrifying the apocalypse is, as long as the family is together, with food to eat, fields to farm, and a safe place to rest, this is the most perfect ending.